Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Resident Alien. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously picking up where last week's episode left off, we've had Harry, Darcy, and Asta stuck in a very complicated predicament that they're in. Obviously, they fell down that crevice, and it's a situation of, all right, we need to be careful about how we move because things could get worse. Sadly, Darcy's, climbing up and she's trying to, get the equipment needed to get them out of there. Sadly, things start rumbling and shifting. Asta and Harry fall further. Darcy gets slammed against the wall. So luckily she's not too, well, she is pretty banged up because one of her hand/arm is really messed up, but she was just kind of knocked out for a little bit. And then you have Asta and Harry, and obviously, it's the whole thing of Asta finding out. I kind of got spoiled on this just because I saw a preview. Luckily, the preview didn't show it, but Asta's reaction to the preview, I was like, oh, she sees Harry. But I didn't know if it was going to be a circumstance where he tries to cover it up, where it's like, wait, I hit my head, I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, but nah, they go, bump that. They lean into it because it's like, can't hide the fact is that half his face just changed. I love, she's like, you're very she's like, you got scales. He's like, my people don't have scales. That's racist. The ones you're thinking of are the reptilians. It's like, who? The reptilians, basically saying they're this gross species that they're trying to take over the universe, and basically Earth is kind of their lab to kind of orchestrate stuff. But it's you don't have to worry about them. They're gross and they have terrible hygiene or something like that. So I was wondering whether he was referencing specifically the reptiles, once again, the what they lean into in this show, I'm wondering, is that supposed to be referencing how there's a conspiracy theory that there's a lot of powerful people that are actually reptile people? Is that what that's supposed to be? Or is it supposed to be his cousin or whatever ended up being an octopus? Octopuses are aliens, or at least some of them are. So maybe it's kind of implying that lizards are also aliens doing their thing here on Earth. But I think that might be what he's actually talking about, very much like the octopus thing. So honestly, Asta handled this way better than most people would, because she's freaking out, but she's honestly, makes a lot of sense, and actually spent a lot of time to get to know Harry. It's our biology is kind of not too far away from humans and stuff like that. It was interesting, them kind of opening up. It's what happened to the real Harry? He's dead in my freezer, and your foot is at his foot. We also have that. I don't know. It's right. Don't want to, especially when you're trying to get Asta to help you, don't want to be bringing up the whole, I kind of murdered somebody. So it's but how did his wife not know? And it's well, they only see what they want to see. And it's and it's wait, did you have sex with her? And she's oh, and he's no, she had sex with me, in front of me, on me. And he was I love the whole thing. And she's oh, come on, Harry, what if she ended up having an alien V baby? Which I was oh, interesting. I've never watched V, the original or the remake, but I'm slightly familiar with it to be oh, I get the reference. Which that's interesting. That it makes you wonder, since that conversation came up, is there a possibility Isabel did get pregnant? I'm sure Harry wasn't using protection because we're married, so probably didn't think too much about it. Isabel probably didn't think too much about it either. We don't know what their circumstances is. That could be an interesting development. The fact that they dropped that in there is right, I didn't even think about that. Right, she might be having an alien baby for all she knows. Like I said, that might be something that they threw that in there because that is foreshadowing something they are setting up. We'll see. But we also kind of got a little into the ins and outs of Harry's situation of it's for him, he likes the cold because for his people, they're also we learned a lot more about his planet, about how for him, his people, he's oh, we don't feel anything. And it's she's oh, are you so sure about that? Because since becoming human, he's felt a lot of stuff he hasn't want to feel before. Because the fact is, he talked about his wife. It's well, we don't really have genders on my planet, but it's my mate died giving birth to our children, and it seems like it's the natural process amongst his species. And so, which is interesting because his mate is something he's only talked about, not the whole children angle. Apparently he had 342, and it's oh, that was also the thing too. He's there's no way she can be pregnant because she would give off a certain scent, plus she'd split open and hundreds of babies would come out. Obviously he's going by his species standards of how babies come about, not human standards. So who knows? could be dealing with a alien human hybrid type of situation. Maybe not. Might come out more alien than we kind of anticipate. Maybe the alien DNA is so strong the baby comes out more. Once again, we don't know what that's going to look like, whether or not that actually turns into something or not. But he does have like 342 keys. He's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. And Austin's like, okay. And he talks about it. He's like, yeah, especially the one I think about the most is 62. It's like, that one had my eyes and everything. But basically the way their species work is it's basically a survival of the fittest. Like you kind of throw them out in kind of the cold winter that kind of basically the winds can like tear flesh from bone, and whoever survives, kudos to you. But kind of, obviously for us, it's like, wow, I can bear like, one is complicated enough. I can't imagine like 342. And he was like, but Jay is a survivor, like kind of trying to make Asta feel better about the whole thing, saying that it's okay, because it's almost like, because there was a whole conversation too they had later on about whether or not about giving up on humanity, that humans aren't as bad as you think they are. But then it's like, well, what about you, Asta? You've kind of given. I mean, it's like for her, it's like she had a certain thought in her mind about what her life was going to be. Then her life went off the path, and now obviously she's trying to, figure things out. But yeah, the whole Harry thing of like, what his real name is, and he's just like, yeah, or some people just call me. And it's like, okay, we're just sick for it with Harry for that. I was wondering whether or not they'd actually bring that up, his whole name. It kind of reminds me of the watch, Sherry's real name on the watch. It kind of reminds me of that. It's like, yeah, it takes you like 6 minutes to say, oh, no, that's not a joke. It literally takes 5 to 6 minutes to say your full name. Okay, cool. But also, like, Harry, like, it's like, oh, yeah, like, she had to stick her hand inside of Harry, and it's like, oh, watch out, be gentle. She's like, oh, my God, 4 arms. He's also like, yeah, there's the teeth there, too. She's like, teeth! And she's just filling in there, and it's like, oh, like, give me a visual. It's like, oh, remember when I was supposed to check so-and-so's prostate? She's like, ah. But luckily, she was able to help out. Obviously, Harry's circumstances is getting worse because he's in a weaker state, and now, obviously, his body's shifting back into an alien form. Even led to the conversation about Max, is like, because of Max's genetic anomaly, like, he's able to see me for what I really am. And it's like, well, I couldn't really have him going shouting about, oh, I'm an alien, he's an alien. So, oh, it must have been scary. And Harry's like, yeah, for me. But she's like, no, for him. And it's like, oh, yeah. But honestly, him and Max are in a much better place now, so that's cool. I was actually really surprised by Harry having that little moment of like thinking about like, Darcy going for help. It's like, yeah, and then he imagines the entire town mobbing up as black and white, like straight out of Frankenstein. But it's like, yeah, can't really let people know about you. She's like, understandably. But we kind of got into a little bit, like, obviously, we as the audience know that Harry's species has come to this planet at least once. But I thought was really fascinating was with him explaining, like, oh, we've been here for, like, the past 1,000 years. We pop in from time to time. Like, we helped humanity, kind of guide humanity, Stonehenge, the pyramids, like, other ways. But then he's like, at a certain point, humanity just kind of turned on us. They started fearing us. And, they started fearing us, and it changes some things because, like, obviously, it's like he's making it seem like we're more so an observer, and he's saying that, like, basically things aren't good, and it basically uses the analogy of a chicken, like a chicken laying on an egg, sitting on an egg. It's like, oh, it comes out as a perfect little chick, but if you leave an egg out in the sun, what does it do? It stinks and rots, and saying that the stinking rot, the second one being the earth. So immediately it goes like, okay, so I think that's, because I wonder like what their whole thing is, like why you decided to wipe out humanity. Is it just like that's what your species does? But it's like, no, it seems like there was some Thanos type of stuff of like, wait, you humans are terrible for this planet. So, but it's also like, who are you to judge, like, but I guess it's like in their mind, it's like, once again, we've declared ourselves the saviors of this planet. Like this planet is going to rot and die if humans are, so it's like, that's, instead of going like halvesies like Thanos does, their plan, Harry's plan, or maybe his entire species plan is just to wipe humanity out. I wonder, is that the real thing? Like, I don't know. He seemed genuine, and I feel like if he was BSing, like we know about the whole real Harry thing, we know he was BSing about that. But other than that, like, I don't know. It seemed like he might have been genuine about that, so that might legitimately be the reason why, like, that's all happening, so which I thought that was so fascinating. Like I said, like I think it's for, in their mind, it's like it's for the greater good of the planet because humanity is such a disease. But I wonder how what his species life cycle is like how long did they live? I don't think they've really gotten into that because I'm wondering, has he been a part of that 1,000-year expedition? Is it? I think the way they talk about it, it seems like this is his first time on Earth. We know somebody came here or Earth like what 50 years ago because the general's so invested in everything. So we don't know whatever played out, like whether it's just like, oh, when the ship arrived, it just bounced, or maybe it caused some mayhem. Maybe they took her dad. We don't know. We never got the full context of like what else happened after that. We just cut to present day and like the general wanting to, it might just be a thing of, oh, I saw this thing as a kid and I've been adamant about proving it exists the entire time. Like maybe she knows they came here with intentions of destroying the Earth, or maybe she just always said it. Didn't seem like she was going at this like we gotta fight this alien. It's not until her subordinate brought it up last episode about potentially aliens being here to wipe out humanity. Until then, I don't think it really crossed her mind. So it's not like she had the intention of like, oh, aliens, we gotta hunt them down, they're definitely here for evil, I mean, because that was the thing for Asta, where it's like, oh yeah, like, aliens, because of movies, are either here to eat us or to eat us or kill us all, which obviously it's actually the former. I mean, the latter. But what I thought was interesting too is like there's a whole conversation about obviously, oh, how'd you get Harry's DNA? And it's like, well, you humans shed like 40,000 skin cells in like a day or something, or a minute, I think is actually what he was saying. But also, it's like my species, we shed our skin all at once. I was like, oh, I'm very much like, I guess, like a snake. But then it's like, and we eat it. And she's like, oh, gross. And he's like, you're gross. But like, I liked like what this episode did a really like. Asta and Harry already had a good relationship, and I think that's why she's so accepting of it, because it's like, honestly, yeah, you've been a weirdo, Harry, but actually like getting to know this about you, because he was actually saying that he's actually glad she actually knows, because it's one less thing. Like he doesn't, it's hard keeping a secret, which, for Asta, she was like, yeah, that's a very human thing. Keeping secrets is never an easy thing. Obviously, with the whole Jade thing, that was her secret. So now, Harry knows her, she knows his. So I just think that's beautiful how they ultimately end up working together. I also love the side of things with Darcy. Obviously, it's a moment like, obviously she wants to save Asta because Asta's her bestie. Because Asta was there, we got a flashback of like after her leg injury, and she just was kind of giving up. Asta was the one that kind of told her like, no, like that's why I drove all the way here. Like, come on now, don't quit on me. You're not a quitter. Don't quit. And that's actually what inspired Darcy, because Darcy was initially like, she had tried to climb up but failed, and was just almost like, I'm sorry, I couldn't save Asta because, Asta kind of helped her. So I think that probably hits her even more of like not being able to save Asta. But I thought it was so interesting, like, it's like she's making that, it's like, oh yeah, like to all the guys that are probably upset, I'm sorry, apologizing to, she even says Dr. Ethan, but never really goes into anything. We kind of skip over that. I love the whole thing of like, oh yeah, Liv, you rock. Talks about Sheriff Mike, and I love the whole thing of like, yeah, remember that one person said something racist to you? I went to go shit in their car, but then I accidentally but then I found out I actually shit in your car. I was like, oh, but you had the best of intentions. That should count for something. I'm sure Mike's not going to appreciate knowing that you're the reason. He probably was like, probably still been wondering the entire time, who shit in my car? And turns out it's Darcy. Interesting. But remembering about Asta inspired her, and she's actually the reason why they were able to make it out. In fact, she was able to kind of pull them up, and Harry's like, we can't, I can't let her find out, and Asta being like, she won't, covers them up and everything. It's like I said, it's pretty dope that Asta has his back. Like, I think that's so amazing. At the same time, like, obviously you have like the thing between Ben and Mike. I love it. Like, it's like, obviously Mike's trying to give him advice on being like, oh, you need to be more assertive, more aggressive, like make the choices for her. And basically being like, you choose the restaurant, you order for her. It's like, oh, that's romantic. It's like, yeah, that's what every woman wants, is a man to make decisions for her. I mean, like I think it also depends on the lady, because not everyone's the same. Some people might want someone a little more assertive. Other people like, yeah, like I'm sure like you picking a restaurant and everything, it's like, oh, I think that borderline's that kind of on that mansplaining type of lane, but still, it's just interesting that Mike's just like, he's like, yeah, oh, it's so surefire. I know how things work out. But I love Ben kind of pushing back a little bit, like, I don't think I should be taking your advice about what women want. It's like, what's that about? It's like, yeah, live. And it's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And they have that little kid thing of like, there's like a slam the door. Oh, you get to slam the door. I slam the door. And it's like the blinds thing, like that kept being a thing on and off. I even love at the end, Ben like slowly turns it open and Mike's staring at him. It's like, oh, you still there? You close in blinds. And it's just like, they're acting like children. I love it. Even later on when Liv, I would also like, Mike is like, yeah, okay, so we need to be, looking into like the science lab getting robbed, which obviously we know that was Harry and Max last episode, but I love this situation of like, you might also need to get a lawyer because some cat was stuck in a cell tower and I used a slingshot to get it down. Now it's limping, so you might need a lawyer because you're probably going to end up getting sued, which I love that it's like, oh, so it's not just Mike and Liv, not unless that was someone he hired to replace Liv, but I'm assuming that dude was already working there. So I was like, oh, I just assumed the only two law enforcement was Liv and Mike. They're the only one they really showed before now. Maybe there's been people in the background I'm just never really taking notice of, but Liv's like getting her stuff out of there and stuff like that. And I love it's the whole whispering stuff back and forth of like Liv whispering stuff for Ben to say. Cause he's like, oh, well, I'm good. I'm happy right now. Mike's like, I got these birds flying around me. Like, oh, like I'm such a good place. And Liv whispers to Ben. Ben's like, yeah, birds floating around your head means that you're unconscious. And that's what that means in cartoons. So, but also, like, I think there's going to be some bridging that gap because obviously Dan comes to Mike because it's like, oh, hey, I haven't seen Asta and I'm kind of getting worried. And Mike's like, oh, it's probably nothing. But then, like, Dan's like, we were both in the military, so we kind of trust our gut, which I'm like, oh, I didn't mention before that Mike was in the military. That was interesting. But it's like, all right, let's look into this. And obviously they try to go to Darcy, but obviously Darcy didn't show up either. So I didn't realize that was Liv's significant other, who Darcy works with. They said his name in the episode, Home Dude. I didn't realize that was her significant other. I don't think that had come up before now. I don't know if that's like just her boyfriend or husband, whatever the case may be. I was like, oh, that's interesting. They were on a date. At the same time, Ben's ordering for Kate, and Kate's like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I'm not going to get that. No, what were you doing? Ordering escargot, you don't like snails. No, he'll have this. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh. And he's trying to be all assertive and stuff like that. And, trying to make, and she's like, what are you doing? It's like, you said you want someone that challenges you. She's like, yeah, you're right. But I don't want you to kind of be anyone but yourself. Like, next time you can choose a restaurant, just choose a place that you like. It's like basically saying that they need to kind of find a balance. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I love you. I just want us to kind of be on the same page. So I thought that was kind of nice. I was like, oh, I especially with things kind of left off between the last episode. I was like, oh, this could potentially be a problem. I was just like the entire time he was like, you're backfiring. But luckily it worked out. But I thought it was a pretty dope moment in that moment. Like, oh yeah, Asta and Darcy are missing. And it's like, hey, let's all jump together. Let's get into this together. Like all three different groups, obviously Dan and Mike, obviously, Liv and their SO, as well as Ben and Kate, and it's like, oh, whatever you need, we got this. Like, oh, let's look into it. Like, I thought that was pretty dope. Once again, flowing into the whole aspect of, what that town represents. The miners, like the 59. So, like, it makes sense. But it was just kind of a representation of that. Like, oh, let's band together and find out what's happening. But when the time comes, like, Darcy takes them to the hospital, but Asta sneaks away with Harry in the truck just so can't let anyone know. And she takes him, and Dan, like, she's like, I need you to not ask questions. Like, are you gonna get Dan involved? And Dan comes in there, and I love that. Like, he's like, Asta, and he sees Asta with the alien. He was like, hell no. Walks away. I was like, this family is so damn chill because both of them are handling it. It's like, no, it's like, it's like, what? Get that thing out of her freezer. And it's like, you're so calm about this, Dan. And she's like, you realize what that is? He's like, yeah, that's an alien or freezer. It's like, yeah, the freezing actually helps with his body because of, like, his planet and stuff like that. So it actually helps him feel better. So she's like, that isn't just an alien. It's someone we know. And he was like, the mayor. I knew it. It's like, no, it's Harry, the doctor. And you wanted me to get examined by him? I love that, though. It's like, but it's like, wait, we don't really know. But it's like, all right, it's like, I need your help with him and everything, which was also, sweet because Asta wants to help him. And Dan's like, all right, I don't like this, but if you trust him, that's fine by me. So obviously Dan, easing Mike, but being like, oh, it's okay. Took Harry to, get an MRI. They're at a different place. They're good. So now they're going back to the situation because for Harry, it's like, oh, like he spent so much time being human. Now he's a failure because his mission and everything. And then he sees then Asta reached in the pocket and was like, oh, I guess she had found it and didn't have time to really tell Harry, or it was, yeah, I think that's kind of what it was. But she's like, here's your device. He's like, oh, yeah. She's like, now you can help us. Let us help you. And obviously it's like, she's like, you're going to be okay. Like, you're not going to die. And it's like, for him, it's like, she really means that. Like, she's there for you. And it's like, so they're not going to die today, but tomorrow, 8 billion. And it's like, I think at the end of the day, Harry's going to change his mind. Either he's going to want to stick around, or he's going to just change his mind in general about humans not being as bad. Like, being around Asta, probably just in general, being around people in that town, realizing people aren't as bad as he thinks. That humans are capable of changing, that they can be there for each other. Yeah, humans have had a history of turning against not just them, but ourselves as well. But still, I think Asta, but more so, interestingly enough, Patience, Colorado in general, might be the turning point to make Harry kind of second guess his decision. We'll see how it ultimately ends up playing out. But obviously, Asta can't cut off his leg, so Dan's like the one that's going to do it. So now not just three people know his secret now. That's interesting, which gets even more interesting because of the whole, the two, because, like, she gave a fake name of Sarah, but, like, also, like, wasn't he, like, a lieutenant colonel or something like that? I think he might just be a lieutenant. But, obviously, they're in college, because obviously they lost the signal, so it's like, all right, how do we find it again? And they're in Colorado. And I was like, oh, you're walking past the posters. I was like, oh, but you don't see it. And he's like, oh, maybe we need to bring the military into it. And she starts choking him out by being like, hey, like, we can't let anyone know about this. If this is supposed to be a top secret mission, so if you're going to rat this out, talk to other people about it, then you have to be disposed of too, until she sees, like, hey, a flyer flies onto it and it's like, hey, it's got Max's information on it. You're like, oh boy. And so later on, we see her using the name Sarah, like, oh, hitting it off with Kate, like, oh my God, hey, phone number, oh my God, you have a son, Max, wonderful. So one step closer to finding our alien. That's definitely going to be really interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. Now they're in town, they're one step closer. Like, I mean, him and Max had the truce, so Max might not be so willing to turn him over, but it might be a thing of, hey, the alien's trying to kill humanity, so you kind of got to work with this kid. So how that's necessarily going to work, because I mean, Asta's probably going to talk to him about it. So another angle too is we do see Mike doing a little bit of work, and obviously he comes across Sam's wife, because it's like, oh, she's with someone else. So obviously implications. Someone had hit me up last week, basically being, or might have been a couple of days ago, being like, oh, obviously it's the wife. Seems like it. I don't think that's the point of the show necessarily. I think it's everything else. It's this underlining thing, sure, but I don't know if, like, the murder in town is supposed to be the most important thing. It's just, like, the shenanigans of everything else that happens in town. I think it's supposed to be this constant through line because it connects so much. Because that was even a conversation between Harry and Asta of, like, why did you choose to do this job? And it was like, he was like, I was kind of cornered, because she was like, why be the town doctor? He was like, I kind of didn't have much choice. I was cornered. I didn't want you to find out. But she was like, no, I think you kind of care a lot more about humans than you kind of give yourself credit for that, especially because for like those 4 months, he was just kind of hiding away, just, alone. And it's like, he's made a lot of connections with people, So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this goes. Asta now being in the know about things kind of probably changes your perspective about a lot. That's why I think the whole Sahar and Max thing probably, it was actually kind of nice for him, because it's like, all right, these are people I can be open. And also, but once again, he was talking to them about everything that was going on. And so, like, having someone else like Asta to talk to about it, and Dan, I forgot. Now that makes it 4. I forgot about Sahar too, so only 3 have seen him in his real form, but still, Sahara knows about it too. So regardless, some very, very interesting developments. I'm really curious to see ultimately where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all we're going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.